let's get started while people are flowing in. So we always start on time, so let's make sure we don't break a habit. This is the 49th Security Thought Leadership webinar today. And we've been here every Tuesday and Thursday debating an issue of importance to the security sector. And the idea of thought leadership is to critique today the type of security we have in order that we get a better type of security tomorrow. We're at a slightly earlier time today, as you can see, very unusually, partly because our topic is about security in Asia. What does the new normal look like? And in previous webinars, those who have attended the last 49, which I'm sure, 48, I'm sure that's all of you, will be aware this topic has cropped up, where we've been hearing that although in some parts of the world, security has been suffering and been in a position where it's finding it difficult to adjust, in Asia, we've been hearing things are much better. That's what we've been hearing from people not in Asia. Today, I've got 4 panelists who are going to be talking about security in Asia, and they're based there, from South Korea, from Singapore, and from Indonesia. In a minute, I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves, and then as usual, once all 4 have done that, I will ask them for their opening statement. 3 minutes where you're going to get their views on what's going on in security in Asia. And once all 4 have spoken, I will then come to you, the audience, and invite you to ask questions. Please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, if you wouldn't mind, rather than the chat button, because that's the one we can see. Get your questions in early and I'll endeavour to incorporate them best I can. So without further ado, let's get going and let's ask our first panellist to introduce herself. Over there in Singapore, Sheila.
Hello, everyone. I am Sheila Tan. I am the Operations Director for Mainguard International. We are a risk management firm that has been in the industry for the last 45 years. And we do a whole range of securities, from security, physical security services, risk management, to corporate investigations throughout the Asia-Pacific region.
Thank you very much indeed, Sheila. And now to South Korea, and Dr. Zhang, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zhang, and I am an assistant professor in University of Ulsan in South Korea. And my research interest is about risk and security management. And I'm typically very much interested in how the physical security can be immersed with IT industry, IT technologies.
Thank you very much indeed. And from South Korea we'll go to Indonesia, and Dino.
Hello, my name is Dino Hindarto. I'm the Managing Director of Nawakara Group. Nawakara Group is a group of company. We've been running in the business for 25 years. We're doing mostly in the guarding, physical security, cash valuables in transit, consultant trainings, and as well as equipment. Right now, we're doing mostly in nationwide contracts. We have about 10,000 guards all over the nations. Thank you for inviting me. Okay.
You're very welcome, Dino. Thank you. And finally to Danny. Danny, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Greetings from Singapore. My name is Danny, and I'm currently working for an American multinational financial services, one of the biggest one around. And I'm also the Senior Regional Vice President of ASIS. So I guess today I'm speaking to you more on the capacity of the latter one. And I hopefully look forward to a more engaging session with you where it's not just a one-way flow of information where the panelists just share their view. Hopefully it'll be more interactive where you as the practitioners, right, as the folks in the field would actually share with us some of your ideas, or maybe throw us some questions that we can actually debate about. And thank you very much. Look forward to engaging. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
Martin.
So now we've met the 4 panelists. Let's now ask each of them for their opening statements. And we'll start off with Sheila. Sheila, your thoughts on this topic first. Sheila.
Okay, well, the topic is what do we think of the new normal for the security industry? Well, I believe with what has happened with COVID-19 in the last 6 months, it has transformed the world and the way we operate completely, not just for the security industry, but also for various industries And my biggest concern is, of course, the economic implications. When we first had the issue of the COVID pandemic, there was obviously panic, and because nobody had actually planned for it, it kind of happened overnight, and everyone needed to know, or didn't really have a standard operating procedure. None of the corporate security plans in place had perhaps considered a pandemic at such a large scales, where many countries in the world had to go into lockdown almost immediately, and then travel plans had to stop, and people had to look at new ways of doing their work. So we had to look at, of course, job redesign. I think that's probably the biggest change that I see in today's new normal. The role of security officers, who are present on the ground, have become more like, I guess, service personnel. They have to learn very quickly on how to support, the clients. And they're not only looking at access control, but there's a lot more focus also on client service and people interaction, with regards to having to monitor temperatures, changing even the way access control works with organizations, having to roster staff weekly, and then knowing who, you can't even look at the card systems anymore, because access control systems are catered, quite differently. They're not catered for the pandemic, where you have like perhaps maybe restricted staff. So all that major changes with technology at the back end, also had to be made. And so we found that security officers on the ground had to learn very quickly on how to use equipments. There was a lot of on-the-job training in terms of, like I mentioned, job redesign, not just at, ground level, but also at management level. Like we had to take on, different roles, in providing support, not just, doing risk management, but also avoiding panic situations, looking at, crisis control measures. We had to look at, in the area of risk management, especially in my area, companies were doing a lot more of their, housekeeping, and they find that, they didn't have the systems up to date with regards to protecting their data. So, and all these take a while actually to be put in place. But now we are like 6 months, at least into the pandemic. So, and everyone is making all these big major changes, and are they able to revert to the old way of doing, their jobs?
Sheila, if I might ask you there, because I want to get the other people in, if I might, Sheila.
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
Let's move to Dr. Zhang. Your opening statement, please.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about mainly about South Korean situation, because many external countries and external media acclaim the response of the South Korean government. So we managed to very well deal with the first wave. But the second wave has come recently because of the large gatherings of people in rallies on the streets, but also by the church, by the institutional gatherings. So we are dealing with the second wave. So that's the current situation in South Korea. But on the business perspective, our business sector is really changed. So I think the topic we have to think about is a change. Many business models, business sectors, some business models, they're booming, some other business models, they're sort of collapsing. But that's also affecting the security sector. So I think basically the overall, the demand for the security officers, the physical security, they are really is kind of a diminishing. But I think the quality of work and the professionalism of their work is getting more important, because they have to not only protect the physical institutions, physical facilities, now they have to deal with IT technologies. They have to manage and control the access of the facilities, but also they have to manage the data that they gather, who are getting into the building and getting out of the building, and they have to also have the information who accessed to their information system, that sort of thing. So I think from the human perspective, the physical security should be more professional. They have to incorporate IT aspects into their work. So that means I think the quality of the work is getting more important. So that's why the security sector overall, they may have to think about to redesign their work qualification or work requirements, sort of things. Physically, so previously they only thought about the physical side of the security and risk factor, but these days they have to incorporate how to manage the virus infections and how to keep records of the people who access to the building, to the facility, or to their just web services, that sort of thing. So I think the importance of their work and the quality of their work is getting more important. That's my understanding.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure we're going to come back on those points too during. Dino, in Indonesia, can we have your opening statement, please?
Okay, hi. What happened in Indonesia was when the first time the COVID coming in, I think nobody was prepared with this pandemics. Yeah, many business has been hit by this pandemics. That makes the unemployment quite high. With this unemployment in the security perspective, we see that the crime rates also increase because nobody has an income for their life, and then the business has been slowing down and maybe even shut down for quite some time. So the people is trying to still surviving, and even worse, there was an incident, not an incident, maybe like a releasing of the prisoner in Indonesia, but 1,000 people releasing from the prisoner at the beginning of COVID. That makes the security measures should be strengthened. However, since we're in Asia, is quite experienced. I call it experience with a few viruses, for example, like SARS and MERS. So the using of the mask is not really a new thing for us. But in the security perspective, especially in the business, like the tourism industry hit a big time. The retail industry had a big time suffering from this one, I think. But a few business as well, they're still at the minimum impact. For example, any business doing with minings, oil and gas, they have their operation in the offshore, onshore, all, as well as the operation in the remote area. They're not affected 100%, but the affections is more on in the security operative like me, the crew chains, because the crew chains has to be quarantined before they go to work. The quarantine takes about 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. So it means that it disturbs the roster, the working roster, which is implicate the income for the guard. So that makes the risk of the guard leaving and the turnover is quite high. But again, we doing that we have to restructure the plan and everything. And then on the site itself, we should follow with the government protocols, which is we have to use our masks and then wash your hands, while the security guard is in the front line where they meet everybody, the workers, the visitors, and everything. On the sides of the business, but actually in the big city like Jakarta, mostly people conducted like the work from home, which maybe like the maximum they can have a 50% occupancy of the office itself. And then if you talk about the new normal, new normal, I think it wouldn't be the same again with the previous year, like the last year. Yeah, the new normal, I think we're gonna have be friendly with the pandemics. Jakarta has experienced about with the bombing incidents. When the bombing incident happens, lots of properties, they enforce the security gates. They have the new procedures, which is they put their vehicle inspection, body search, metal detectors, and then those kind of things. And now when the pandemic coming in, we're gonna be in the same procedures.
Dino, you're just cutting out. Dino, I'm so sorry, you're just cutting out.
So this kind of behavior.
You're just cutting out.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on if that's all right with you, Dino, because I want to get the other opening statement. You were just cutting out for a second. Danny, can I have your opening statement, please? Can I remind the audience, get your questions in, and we'll come to the panel straight after with your questions. Danny.
All right, thanks, Martin. So once again, greetings from Singapore. So I see a lot of folks from different parts of the world. So in Singapore, I'm effectively bilingual, so I speak English and Singlish. So if you're not, if there's anything that you're not, clear, want me to be more concise, just reach out to me and say hi. So to me, I think, everyone said that this whole COVID thing is a black swan, and it is of sorts, because I think for the last 10 years, post-SARS, post-H1N1, and so on and so forth, post-MERS, right? We have seen a lot of experts come out to say that, the next pandemic is around the corner. The next pandemic is around the corner. But the question is, none of us really anticipated, right, the extent and reach of, the impact of COVID-19, right? I mean, when was the last time where half of the world's population stayed at home, right? And, much like, how 9/11 changed the security landscape, I think COVID-19 will continue to change the landscape even more. So, as a security practitioner, what does it really mean, I think it has, more or less, I would argue, thrown a lot of our security plans out the window. Why? Because how many of us, for example, have taken into consideration, right, government intervention, right? How are you going to run, security operations if, well, no one's on site, right? Not even your outsourced, security personnel is on site. No one's on site. So what are you going to do? What's the alternative? How do you kick in your BC, or your CM plan? And I'm sorry, working from home, your home is not an alternate site, right? Working from home simply means working from home. So how many of us, right, is able to take this opportunity, right, to pivot, into a new operating landscape? How many of us can actually look over the horizon, right, to anticipate, what does, the future of work look like? What does the future of security landscape look like? And how do we pivot today? How do we adjust, right, and retool so that we can meet the challenges of tomorrow? Because I bet you the way that, we operate in the future is going to look a lot different compared to our pre-COVID-19 days, So what do we do today? That's really the big question, as not just security practitioner. Most of us are tasked to protect, our people, our branding, our assets. So how do we go about, doing this under the cloud of COVID-19? Zhang has, repeated many times, in South Korea, for example, they are encountering the second wave. Cities like Hong Kong, for example, is encountering a third wave. So how do we operate in an environment where it could be an open and closed environment? And I don't think we should all hang on to, the false hope of a vaccine. I think we need to understand that average vaccine took 15 years to produce. The fastest one came out in about 5 years. And today, something like the fifth, manufacturer has gone into phase 3 trials. But the phase 3 trials is only 3,000, vis-a-vis a normal one, a phase 3 trial of 10,000. So as you rush through the process, right, you know, inevitably something is going to get missed. And even if the vaccine is fully developed, right, how long is it going to take the government to produce, right, to distribute, to train, and to inoculate the whole population? That's going to take a lot of time. So what do we do from now to then? And then, you know, not to throw in, you know, another lemon into the mix, what if the virus mutates, right? So essentially, right, your vaccine, you know, would have to start from square one. So with that, I think that's my opening. I hand it back over to you, Martin.
Danny,
I know
thank you very much, Danny. I appreciate that, and some interesting thoughts there. Well, look, we've got a lot to discuss. So we've got some questions in advance. We've got some on the screen. Let me come first of all to Jae-yong. And Jae-yong, you make an interesting point where you say that the training and the preparation of security staff is going to have to change. Jae-yong, I wonder whether you feel that, and there's a question from Rajiv Martha, who's a previous panelist and indeed will be organising one himself coming up in a few weeks. And Rajiv from India asked the question, do you think this applies to the senior management, the chief security advisor? Do you think there will be a gradual shift in the skill sets of the security heads? Because in a sense, in security, if the head shift, it sends a message down below. Dr. Zhang, Jae-yong, what do you think?
Yeah, I think yes, security officers, they have to maintain more skills than now. Not only the physical side, but also they have to take care of the data side, the technology side. So to train them, definitely the head of the security just officers and the management of the companies, they have to understand the necessity of their skill set and what sort of qualification and what sort of requirement those field security officers really need. So I think that can affect, they have to understand that can affect their just business bottom line, also business just profits. And if the manager of the security officers try to just communicate with their just business management that their risk side and the security side can be quantified in that way. So we have to train those people in this way, in this model, so that we can survive in this new normal society. So that can be a really new sort of communication thing between the field security officers and the management and the head of security officers, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to talk to Sheila now. I want to ask you the same question, Sheila.
Sure.
Sheila, the question specifically is about this.
Right.
Senior management, the chief security officer. Do you see that role changing as a direct result of COVID-19? And if so, in what way? Sheila, you can be brief, please, Sheila. I want to get other questions in.
Sure, okay. Well, definitely. I mean, I think, you know, all our roles will change. The role of the security manager, I think, anyway, has evolved over the years. We've seen that, you know, 20 years ago, the role of a security manager would be more focused on doing security audits and physical risk management. And then, you know, with the advent of the digital age, we see that security managers have now, you know, more involved in, you know, working with the IT departments and looking also at asset protection from, you know, technology. And we also see, you know, with like what Dr. Jae-yong has said, you know, some countries, especially like Singapore, we have actually focused, and there's a real push towards complementing physical security with technology. So a lot of the government, like a lot of the large tenders now are outcome-based contracts where, you know, the focus is not, you know, the number of men that you put on your site, but at the end of the day, you know, the actual outcome. And there's always a big push towards, you know, what technology do you have? And when we talk about technology, we are also moving away from just the basic CCTV, you know, the access control. You know, we are now talking about artificial intelligence. You know, we're talking about, you know, robotics. We've also seen, you know, the world progress now towards, you know, smart technology. You know, and how.
Sheila, can I just ask you specifically, just beside, I don't want to get distracted. Do you see, though, the senior managers, the chief executive, do you see that as a role where skill sets will need to change dramatically because of the technology shift? Or is this something that just affects those further down the line? Just that question, Sheila, if you wouldn't mind?
Yes, I definitely see that there will be a change because security managers will have to learn all these various aspects and,
Okay.
adapt to
Okay,
all
thank
these
you very
changes.
much. Let me come to Dino. Dino, question for you.
Yes.
We've picked up here, Ali Akbar has asked a question about the role of technology, which Sheila started talking about then as well. And this sense in which the landscape's changing and we're moving from people to technology in a more dramatic way. This has cropped up on the previous webinars, Dino. Are you seeing in Indonesia a shift away from people to technology? Dino.
Yes, I think the shifting from people to technology, it's happened. In Indonesia, if you know, we're a very big country, we're an archipelago country, which is, it's not that fast. Maybe in the big city, it could happen fast. But if you see in the other part of Indonesia, we still have a industry that we need we're the fourth most populated country, and we have the productive layer of works people. Yeah, I think it's going to be happen, but it's not that fast, especially nationwide.
Dino, we got your answer. You've gone off again. So I want to talk. I'm going to turn to Danny. Danny, we've lost Dino
to
for a
move
second.
to that
Danny, I
direction
wonder if I could come to you on this question. So Dino, we've lost you again. So just we got the pit that what we got, Dino, was that it was different in different parts of Indonesia. I wonder if I can come to Danny then. Meanwhile, it looks like Dino's moving, which will be helpful. Danny, question for you. You raised this point that things are going to be different afterwards. I wonder if I can push you on this a little bit more. Yes, it's going to be different. We've heard in other webinars, and Sheila in the question alluded to technology being one. Do you see post-COVID-19 technology being the game changer? Or Danny, to address your own question, what is going to be the big issues that are going to be so significantly different? Danny.
Yeah, so COVID-19 is probably the biggest catalyst of technological change, not your CTO and not anything else. I mean, just from a personal perspective, right? I mean, pre-COVID-19, we were basically still operating on Skype, Skype for business, right? But post that, I mean, look at the platform that we're using now, Zoom. How many of us have a Zoom, account, pre-COVID-19, or Microsoft Teams, right? So even our CSO, many of us would have to learn how to use such tools, right? But adoption of such tools, like Dino pointed out, is going to take time, right? Because it's not just about having the Zoom account, right? I need to have the proper hardware, right? I need to have a laptop or phone and so on and so forth, but it's not enough, right? Because I need to have enough bandwidth, I need to jump on my 4G or 5G or whatever, right? To get adequate bandwidth. So there's a whole supply chain of stuff that you require to pull everything together. So that's going to take time, and obviously, it depends where you sit. Even in Singapore, some patches are still patchy, right? The internet, the ISP providers are still not consistent. So with more of us obviously working from home, bandwidth is affected, right? So even though technology is being leveraged, but it's going to take time, and the results will vary depending where you sit.
Danny, just on that, so I like your point, Danny, right? That it's going to be dramatically different. I just wonder, technology you've already mentioned, is there any other big picture thing you would point to and say, and this is also going to be dramatically different?
Yep. Our life is going to be different, right? The way we work is going to be different, because we have just proven to everyone else that all of us can actually work from home for 6 months, right? And sometimes we also realize that we may not need as many people, right? As much real estate, right? As much equipment as we could, because the last 6 months have proven or disproven a lot of our mindsets to be either true or not true, right? So it's challenged our conventional wisdom, what we thought was possible and what we thought was not possible. And I think we need to really, move our paradigm of how things, should be to how it can be, right?
Danny, I'm going to stop you there. Danny, thank you very much. I want to move on. I want to go just quickly, Dino. You make an interesting point about things moving quicker in the big cities than the rural areas. Just on this point, are you also seeing very briefly, Dino, if you wouldn't mind, are you also seeing in Indonesia this outcome-focused type of contract that Sheila's talking about, which around the world will be seen as a big positive? Dino?
Yeah, it's going to be happen, but it's not that fast. It's not that fast. according with all the infrastructure and also the capability of people as well as the equipment and so forth. It's not that fast, but we're going to move on that direction for sure.
Dina, thank you very much indeed. And come to the next question. Sheila, I'm going to come back to you on this first. Now, this idea that, and you spoke about this in your opening statement, Sheila, and Moses Ava has asked the question about clients asking security officers to do different jobs. You know, we mentioned screening, temperature check, and you mentioned them, Sheila. And you and others, in fact, and nearly everyone presents this as a very good thing. But is it necessarily a good thing if they're being asked to move away from purely security tasks to a different role? In other words, are we losing the security element to this? Sheila, very briefly, if you wouldn't mind your thoughts, and I'm going to come to Dr. Zhang for his. Sheila.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm not sure about losing the security element, because ultimately, like, you know, a security officer knows, you know, and he will be trained in the security role. But having that additional role, like now we're just, I think, looking at not just security officers, but we call them service officers, where they provide, you know, an extended role beyond security services with, and then having to learn new skills in terms of you know, customer relationship and how to interact with, you know, people from various walks of life, doing, you know, roles like, you know, checking temperatures, which they never had to do before. And then also, you know, looking at physical contact, you know, how to...
Sheila, would you say though, Sheila, I mean, here's the question. You articulated very well in your opening statement all the benefits, okay? You said these new things, and elsewhere, another webinar's the same thing. And I suppose the question from Moses is just to put this point. Okay, but we're now moving away from tasks that are typically security. Is that a negative?
I don't actually see it as moving away from the task of security as an extension of the role of a security officer. So
okay. Let me come to Dr. Appreciate your point. Jae-Yong, what about you? Do you get the point about this, that we spent a long time building up security expertise? Much talk about the fact that, and you said yourself in your opening statement, this is going to be seen as them being more professional, more skilled. Yeah, but aren't they doing a job that lots of people can do now because we've moved away from that specialism? I just wonder what you thought about that.
Yeah, I don't think that's sort of losing their skill set, but I think there's a resetting, redefining their role and their skill sets. So I think they have to incorporate and they have to identify health risks in their risk and security measurement perspective. So I think that's the necessary thing from the social perspective and the geopolitical perspective these days. So I think that's a sort of redesigning, resetting their role and their work skill set. So I don't think that's not necessarily a bad thing. That can be a good thing. That can be an opportunity to some people who are working in this security sector.
Yeah, okay. Danny, I want to come to you on this because Danny, you in your opening statement made the point that things are going to be different, and we tend to see these changes, Danny, as generally good for security. By and large, on previous webinars, COVID-19 is a point where security could shine. After all, that's what it does in a crisis. Security shines. The question is this, Danny, that as we move into an era where it's going to be tough economically, Dino mentioned this, and I'll come to Dino second, the argument could be that's when security gets back in its box. That's when the cutbacks occur, that's when the reductions occur, and all we're seeing is a temporary boost. And very soon, security is going to be back where it was once, which is a very marginal activity. Danny, your thoughts on that?
I don't think this is a revolution of sorts. I think it's more of an evolution, right? I mean, Buddha once said that nothing is permanent. I think as security practitioners, we need to continue to evolve. It doesn't matter whether you are, in the man guarding business or in corporate security. We need to continue to evolve. We need to continue to be relevant, right? I think there is going to be a confluence of tasks, right? In the future, if you ask yourself, right, do you still foresee yourself to be doing the same job in 50 years? Someone else or something else might be doing their job by then. right? So we'll see, you know, security professionals over the last 10 years, for example, taking on BC roles, you know, business continuity roles, crisis management roles, so and so forth, you know, and even safety and so on and so forth. I think going forward, right, we need to redefine what you know security means, or even coin a new term, right, of what people in this profession will do, you know, 10 years down the road. Because 10 years down the road, right, we cannot still be standing outside the door and, you know, checking IDs and stuff like that, because, you know, technology will do a lot of it. But at the end of the day, right, having said that, when it comes to response, you know, no CCTV, you know, no system will be able to do that. We will still need to, you know, send someone, you know, out there to react to the situation, to put out a fire or talk to someone. That still needs to happen, right? So we need to push the humans right up the value chain, right? Whatever can be automated, be automated. But we can push our security officers, right, to do things that's even beyond planning, you know, beyond response. You know, we just have to move them up the value chain.
Okay, thank you, Dino. That's an interesting point. Do you agree?
I agree. I agree. The issue is about the response. The response, we still need the response. The technology, I think, for the daily monitoring, we can do that. We can be changed by the machines, especially in some big city, yeah, but some big area. But when incident happen, we still need to have some people for respond with these incidents. It happens, I think, everywhere in the world. We need the response team.
Okay, so from your point of view then, Dino,
yes,
you don't see that this is a negative in any way. And I'm just pointing, all I'm trying to do, Dino, is put this point, and you raised it yourself about businesses going out of business. And there are some who argue that that is going to be the downfall here. The reality is that post-COVID-19, we're going to go back to where we were. Do you think that is a possibility too? Or are we on a positive change?
No. We're going to be on the positive change, definitely.
Okay.
But again, the shifting, the behavior shifting is going to be happen.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to come to all of you with a question very quickly. And the reason I'm going to come to all of you is because of this. Outside of Asia, there's a tendency to think that you've got this nailed. You have got this nailed. And I'll tell you why there's a sense in which you in Asia have got this nailed. Is because one, you've dealt with it before, as you were saying earlier, some of you, you've dealt with pandemics before, you know about masks, you know about this.
Sorry.
Two, you're on the ball with technology. And three, you're on the ball with data. Now, what I'm sensing here is that we may have exaggerated outside of Asia, just the sort of problems you're facing. You've mentioned third wave, you mentioned some of the realities. Very briefly, each of you, I'm going to come to you to say, to the extent, what do you think most needs to change in your country, in your sector, for security to make the next step of improvement? What is the big ticket issue that needs to change? Sheila.
Well, for me, I think it would be training. I think even Dr. Zhang has mentioned that with the new job redesign and scope of security, I think there's at various levels of security, there needs to be training into various areas that we are probably less familiar with, like, such as disease monitoring and control, which, you know, has not been focused on for security personnel. You know, at one stage we were all focused on, you know, I guess anti-terrorism type activities for security. But now we also need to look at, you know, the other enemy, so to speak, you know, handling a pandemic. And
really interesting. I think it's really interesting. Actually, believe it or not, that has not been cropped up in my life so far. And funny enough, Alietin Kangos was asking very much about risk management. And I guess that would be your point, that there needs to be a different type of things on a security risk management agenda. Very quickly, Sheila.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Interesting point. Zhang, your point too. Big ticket issues, what most needs to change?
Yeah, I think social interaction itself has changed from offline to online. So based on that, security sector needs to be changed too. So I think we have to, I think this pandemic really expedited automation and digitalization. So I think inevitably security sector need to incorporate these change in terms of digitization and how to manage your data that you have and how to automate your security work. So in terms of these two things, if you successfully try to follow this social interaction change, then you might be successful in the future in your sector. That's my understanding.
And very quickly, Jayon, do you think the security sector where you are is geared up to do that well?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think in South Korea, they're very well adapting to this change of social interaction. They have incorporated a lot of IT devices and IT technologies, and they try to maintain that in the future because they saw the benefit from these gadgets. So in the future, they will try to reduce the human number of the number of human social security officers. They might try to just expand the technological perspective, technological gadgets, and then they try to find some mistakes, some mishaps from the technologies, from the software, and that's the quality of job the field security officers can do in the future.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to go to Dino. Dino,
Yes.
big picture items, Dino. What's the key things that need to change in Indonesia, security sector-wise?
I think the organization has to revisit their organization resilience things about their planning, about their assessment, as well as about their business continuity. Because at the end of the day, they have to be survive with any kind of pandemic coming. So this COVID is a big exercise for organization to revisit their premises, they revisited their security perimeters and the other resilience things.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, as you say, it's caught people by surprise, this one, and they can't do that again. They've got to be ready next time. Thank you very much indeed for that. I've heard a few things along those lines, Dino. Interesting, it's Indonesia too. Danny, finally to you. Big picture items, you say it's going to change. What's the big thing that needs to change, Danny?
I think the big picture is that even though we need to keep our eyes on the ball, which is COVID, but I don't think that is our only biggest danger around. I mean, if you look at your day-to-day, right, what do you think is the most dangerous part of the day? It's not just fearing of catching of COVID, right? When you go to the convenience store, every year for the last 10 years, right, more than 1.5 million people die from road traffic accidents every single year. For the last 30 years, roughly up to 1 million people die from influenza, right? And this has been going on, but you don't read this on the papers, right? So as we keep our eyes on the ball of COVID-19, right, as security risk, management professionals, let's not forget about other risks. Like in Singapore, dengue, has been killing more people than COVID ever did, right? So, but how often do you read about dengue, vis-a-vis COVID?
Danny, thank you. And rather interestingly, we're talking here about future webinars. And you four have definitely fed into ideas. I've got to tell you that. Thank you very much indeed. And one of them we're talking about is the extent to which we've been distracted by COVID-19 from other important factors. It's an interesting point. Thank you so much indeed to the panel. We could have gone on. I could have asked you 40 more questions, actually. Very interesting to hear what's going on in Asia. And for those of you who have attended the first 48, be aware there's some interesting different observations today. And we'll pick up on these in future webinars. My grateful thanks to the panel and to the audience for your questions. And thank you to those in advance. I didn't get to all of them. I apologize. Quick reminder on doing security well. The OSPAs have closed in Kenya now. They're still open in the UK, in Romania and in Germany. And it's the last day to enter the Tackle Economic Crime Awards. And by the way, we are looking at bringing the OSPAs to Asia. I've already had the contact with two of the panel, Sheila and Danny, about this, and we're looking to expand, and Dino actually, into other parts of the world. So look out for us in Asia. Finally, to say that on Thursday, at our normal time of 3:30 British Summer Time, we have a special 50th webinar on the role of security associations. Are they a failed resource or a fundamental vehicle for a better security sector? We've heard both arguments in previous webinars. We'll be debating that issue with another elite panel on Thursday at 3:30. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again to my panel. Thank you very much indeed to my audience around the world. I hope you will join us on Thursday for that 50th webinar. Until we see you again, wherever you are in the world, stay safe.